All right, with the end of oral communication, we will shift gears over to item number 1. So committee members, just to let you know, we're going to go over a few different items today. The first one is really just more practical in nature. This is being the first Citizens Oversight Committee meeting. Per the ordinance that was adopted by the voters back in November of 2024, it sets the election of officers. So you will need to elect a chair, a vice chair, as well as a secretary. The rules of those particular items are very straightforward. The chair will run the meeting, the vice chair will run the meeting in absence of the chair, and then you will have the secretary who will assist with the minutes. Just so you know, I will be taking the minutes, so that secretary will basically be reviewing them before we have them signed by the chair. So those are the responsibilities, just so you know, for the purposes of if you're interested. On that particular note, any individual who wishes to serve any of these seats, whether it be chair, vice chair, or secretary, is able to make a motion. You can have a discussion. It requires a motion, a second, and then a vote can take place. During this time, just one thing to note, and this, Carl, just for your awareness, Carl is going to be, as our alternate, is not going to be able to participate in the proceedings of voting or nominating himself, but the active voting members are. So I'll turn it over to the committee members. Anyone who wishes to speak, you can just turn on your microphone and we'll go from there.
I can begin. I'd like to nominate Pat Grant for chair.
I'll second that nomination.
And can you repeat the, you said Pat?
I'm sorry,
Patrick Hall. Okay, cool. Pat, all right, perfect. Thank you so much. I just wanted
Apologies.
No, not a problem at all. All right, and we have a second. Any discussion about that amongst the other committee members? Okay. If none, Pat, do you have any comment? Are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be my honor.
Great. With that being said, that we have a motion and we have a second, we'll just do a simple roll call vote. We're not going to use the system. So Committee Member Covington, how do you vote?
Yes.
Committee Member Hall, how do you vote? How do you vote?
Yes.
How do you vote?
Yes.
How do you vote?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0. With that being said, we'll move on to Vice Chair. And then we can entertain a motion for Vice Chair at this time.
I'm willing to accept the vice chair position.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
I'll third it.
There you go. That sounds great. So we'll move on to a vote, and we'll just do a roll call vote. Committee Member Covington?
Yes.
Committee Member Hall?
Yes.
Committee Member Rogers?
Yes.
Committee Member Ham?
Yes.
Committee Member Portman?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0. So now we have Carol Rogers is going to serve as Vice Chair. And then we'll move on finally to Secretary. Would anyone like to serve as Secretary? And I will assure you, you will not have to do much work. I will be taking care of the lion's share of that.
I will be happy to do secretary.
Okay, great.
I second that.
Great. Any discussion? All right, we'll move on to a vote. Committee Member Covington,
Yes.
Committee Member Hall, Committee Member Rogers, Committee Member Ham, Committee Member Portman. Committee Portman is now going to serve as Secretary. With that being said, prior to moving on to our next item, Committee Member Hall, if you want to sit in the center, I'm going to give you the gavel. Just change seats. Sorry. All right, now we're going to shift over to item number 2. And item number 2, we're going to be reviewing the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee bylaws that were drafted by the City Council. I'd like to provide a little bit of background on this for the committee members' edification as well as for the public. So the City Council directed myself to draft bylaws for the Measure I Oversight Committee and have them reviewed by the Boards and Commissions Subcommittee, which is made up of Councilmember Martinez as well as Mayor White. On March 5th, 2025, the council provided that direction. Then on March 13th, the subcommittee reviewed the bylaws. Then the bylaws were sent back for further edits, came back on May 31st. They reviewed them once again, and then they were adopted by the City Council on June 11th. Now I just want to provide kind of the highlights of the bylaws. The full bylaws are in your agenda packet that was sent out, and for the public's edification, all the agenda packets over there have the bylaws included in them, so if you have questions, but they were also shared in a public meeting during the council as well. With that being said, I'll just review the highlights. So open meeting compliance, all meeting materials and reports are posted on the city's website. In addition, this is one of the elements that is included beyond the scope of the ordinance that was adopted by voters. This would provide you, the Citizens Oversight Committee, with the ability to hire an independent auditor that you would select who would then conduct annual audits of the Measure I finances. The auditor would be paid by Measure I funds. Then we'd have staff support from myself, the finance director, and the city manager as needed pertaining to the various responsibilities, and any unresolved procedural questions referred to the city attorney. One element of this worth noting is that the ordinance that was adopted by voters only required 2 meetings of the Citizens Oversight Committee a year. However, after deliberation amongst the council members, input from the public, and feedback from the city manager, in the bylaws as currently written, it recommends up to 6 meetings per year, or I'm sorry, at least 6 meetings per year. You could have more as you see fit, and that would be scheduled on a case-by-case basis in conjunction with your regular schedules. I'll be coordinating with you, but essentially you'd be meeting 6 times a year at minimum. So you can adjust anything in the bylaws. One thing to clearly note is that the ordinance that was adopted by voters empowers the Citizens Oversight Committee to write your own bylaws, to draft them and make adjustments as you see fit. The council took the initial step to put them together, and there was the attached letter from the council which articulates kind of their rationale behind that. But I just want to turn that over to you, and any questions you may have as it pertains to the bylaws, we can go through line by line. You can suggest amendments, edits, and we can adjust them as you see fit, and we can go from there. So I'll just turn it over to anyone who wishes to speak at this time.
I think that from what my understanding is that one of the larger concerns was the amount of meetings, and I'm happy that that was modified and addressed, and I think that 6 or more meetings a year is very appropriate.
I have a question regarding when we'll get the financial reports. It talks about quarterly financials.
Yeah, so
And again, I'm really happy about the 6 meetings, but we are going to want to work that schedule around our financial reporting, right?
correct. So you'll receive a report right at this meeting. You're going to receive, that's the very next item, where our finance director, Christina Holmes, is going to provide you with an update of the operating budget that was adopted by the city council. But then on an ongoing basis, after these bylaws are officially adopted, then you'll be receiving quarterly reports. It'll be most likely in conjunction with our normal budgetary process that we have for the city. But the other piece of this is that the Citizens Oversight Committee, per the ordinance, does need to produce a report that comes to the city council for full disclosure, and with the independent auditor, that individual would help you compile that report. So that's part of how the finances will be disclosed to the council. And in essence, just to highlight one of the important things, as was referred to by Mr. Oliver, the elements in the sales tax language are really what you're measuring against what the city council approved, so to make sure that they are aligning with the language that was written that the voters adopted. Even though it's a general tax, you still want to adhere to those guidelines that were set up in the Measure I language.
And how long after the quarter close do we see a
If you don't mind,
financial?
Christina, yeah, since this is realm of
I
expertise.
should wait
I'll-
for the
No,
presentation.
it's totally fine.
My
Actually,
questions will be answered.
Christina's right here. She could
Okay.
actually provide.
Thank you.
Yeah, she could provide even more detail.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christina Holmes. I'm the Director of Finance for the city. So typically the quarterly reports for City Council, we generally go around October for fiscal year end. We don't typically do a first quarter report because there's not quite enough information for the first 3 months of the fiscal year to report out anything substantial, because we're just kind of starting to get the books going. A mid-year report usually comes around February, March, and then a third quarter report kind of somewhere after that, around May, June. So it does take us a little bit of a process to close our books, collect all the revenue, reconcile everything, but that's kind of the cadence. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Yeah, with no questions, comments, or thoughts, I guess entertaining a motion, whatever that motion may be, you can either approve the bylaws as you see fit, suggest an amendment, or move forward, whatever you would like to do.
I motion that we accept the bylaws as written.
I second that.
All right, any discussion from committee members? All right, then we'll proceed with a vote. Committee member Covington, how do you vote?
Yes, approve.
Vice Chair Rogers?
Yes.
Chair Hall? Yes. Committee member Ham? Yes. Secretary Portman? Yes. Motion approved, 5-0. With that being said, then we will carry on to the Oh, and one thing prior to doing this, I did want to show you just for your own edification and the public is aware as well. We are going to be in the process of actually showing different items throughout the city that are funded by Measure I. So you'll start to see this come out into the community. It was designed by our communications team. Just want to let you know that this will be kind of some branding that'll be going on so the public starts to see exactly where their tax dollars are going. So anyways, just wanted to have that for your awareness. You'll see it on city vehicles and banners, things of that nature. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Christina, who's going to go over the operating budget.
Great, thank you. So again, my name is Christina Holmes, Director of Finance for the City of Escondido. So on the agenda this evening is to review the Measure I operating budget that City Council adopted this past June. So this evening, we're just requesting that the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee review the fiscal year 26 annual operating budget. So this is what was adopted by council, and we're going to go through both the revenue and a high-level overview of the expenses. So we're anticipating revenue of a little over $38.4 million, and we currently have budgeted expenses of $31.3 million. So if you'll recall, the ballot language in Measure I anticipated annual revenue of $28 million. You all know that this was a citizens initiative. We assume that the committee used a revenue projection from previous ballot measure efforts that the city undertook. The city did not engage with a consultant during this preliminary effort. However, after Measure I was officially adopted, the city did engage with 2 different consultants to prepare a preliminary forecast for Measure I funds. The base of how we project the revenue uses the city's current sales tax rate of 1%. HDL is one of the consultants that provided a forecast anticipating $35 million or 77% of the city's base rate. Avenue Insights, a second consultant, projected a little higher revenue forecast at 92% or a little over $41 million. Because this is a new tax for the city, how the district tax is assessed and collected is slightly different from the city's general 1% tax. So forecasting is a little tricky at the moment until we start to receive actual data from the activity generated across the city. These forecasts will get a little bit better each time. We'll have more information in order to project what that revenue looks like. So given that, what was approved in the budget is the average between the 2 forecasts, which is the $38.4 million. So the new sales tax went into effect April 1st. Our first cash distribution was received in July. This is what we call like a cash advance from the state. Again, the state is also collecting information, reconciling. So it won't be until the first quarter is officially closed at the end of September, and we get a full set of data for July, August, and September that our sales tax consultants will be able to analyze, report on actual receipts received, and will report information out at that time and adjust projections if needed. So at the May 21st preliminary operating budget at that city council meeting, staff presented the recommendations for Measure I investments. We categorized them into these 4 broad categories: either new, meaning it is a brand new item or position; reinstated is an expense that was previously eliminated and is being brought back into the budget; upgraded are line items that are positions that are being increased or reclassified; and existing items are items that were in the general fund that have been moved to Measure I funded as the city continues to address the general fund structural budget deficit. So we started with police. 7 COPS officers were moved to the Measure I fund. The Animal Control Services contract, a program coordinator position was added. We funded the purchase of 37 police department vehicles that were past their useful life that needed to be replaced. The police department also did a bit of a reorganization of their maintenance and operations line item budget. In prior fiscal years, due to general fund budget deficits, those were covered by savings and employee services. So this was an effort to true up to what the police department truly does spend in maintenance and operations. Next was for the fire department. We're funding one fire station and one ambulance service with Measure I. Those are both current fire stations and ambulance services, not new. The membership with Northcom we funded with Measure I. There are some professional service agreements that the fire department funded, along with 3 different positions. And then the fire also had some critical public safety equipment needs. That was 2 utility trucks and 3 pumpers. Development services was another department that we focused on. This was the addition of 12 positions to cover planning, engineering, and building, and code. Then there were several items that covered the parks and open space areas across the city that have either not been funded in prior years or critical needs that the city is addressing. Some positions were added to community services and parks, a principal planner that will be specifically devoted to parks planning. We upgraded part-time park rangers, upgraded those to 8 full-time. Those patrol our parks around the city as well as downtown. Added some positions for public works. The city's working on a Climatech energy roadmap program that will be coming to City Council later on this month for final approval. We funded some wastewater services as well as some funding for the Reedy Creek Golf Course. Next is a list of one-time investments to our infrastructure and public safety. These would be critical roof repairs, some flooring upgrades and cleaning, awning repair, a historic property facility assessment, and some infrastructure needs over at the California Center for the Arts building. Again, additional infrastructure needs. This is both at city facilities and also our public safety facilities, fire stations, and police and fire headquarters. And then there's a few positions that were added citywide to help support various programs going across the city. That was 2 positions for the city attorney's office, a position for the city manager's office, as well as funding set aside to engage with a consultant to look into what it looks like to pursue a smart city. Communications added a management analyst position for social media, as well as an online community outreach tool that we'll be using for the budget process, as well as other city endeavors. You saw quite a long list of positions that were added, so Human Resources also was able to add 2 positions that will help with the recruitment and retention for those positions. So this is now a summary of all that information, kind of sorted into now a different category, a summary of one-time investments for Measure I. These are what we would consider the annual Measure I investments. And then these are the list of positions that are now funded by Measure I. So that concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Great. At this time, committee members can ask any questions that they see fit pertaining to the budget. Yeah, Commissioner.
Yeah. Thank you. In the projected costs of new personnel funded by Measure I, is that inclusive of benefits and contributions such as retirement obligations? Also, how does the city plan on dealing with or managing overtime for those employees should that amount exceed the Measure I funding?
Yes, so within the Measure I position budgets, it is fully burdened. I think it's a little over $5.3 million in total for personnel costs. There is no overtime budgeted for Measure I, so if those positions do incur overtime, we'll have to address that at that time. Either identify an alternative funding source or come back for approval to use Measure I funds for overtime. The fully burdened hourly rate, or the fully burdened personnel costs include the retirement portion for those, the current portion for retirement costs for those staff. Anything beyond that is not included in Measure I. Yeah.
I noticed that there was funding for Reedy Creek. I think, did I see it was a budget shortfall or something?
That's correct.
Is there a long-term plan for Reedy Creek, or are we just plugging a hole?
There is a management agreement in place. The management agreement with Corsco does expire in a few years, but covering their annual operating deficits, if there is one, is part of the terms of the management agreement. So it would not be until after that management agreement is either altered or renewed that could be addressed.
Any questions, comments, concerns? All right.
I have a small question.
Sure.
I noticed the rain gutter repair that I thought should have been under one time, but it looked like it was annual.
Some of those, that's a great question. Thank you. Some of those, the directors put together a multi-year plan. So knowing we can't tackle everything in 1 year, Public Works identified the really critical city or public safety structures that needed to be addressed this year. So it's under annual because it's part of a multi-year plan where we will likely be requesting more funding next year.
Thank you.
And I guess I just have a couple of questions. What is Northcom?
That is.
That's our dispatch for the fire
That's what I
department.
thought that
Thank you,
was.
Joe.
Is
Yes,
that,
thank you.
is that the agreement with the other cities? Is that what that is? Or,
Northcom is like a joint powers dispatch center. So
Okay.
all of the north zone departments, so all the way from Rancho Santa Fe, Del Mar, Encinitas, Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista, San Marcos, us, and then I think there's one other coastal.
so I'm curious, that was existing, and we're using Measure I funds for it. Was that at risk had we not gotten Measure I passed?
I think we just started Northcom.
Yeah, so the agreement with Northcom, thank you very much. We actually got one, I'll call it 1 year free for the Northcom membership. So as part of joining, we didn't have to pay that membership fee the first year. So this was actually the first year. So had Measure I not passed, we would have had to figure out how to fund that with general fund. So it's an existing agreement, first year of a full payment for the membership fee.
Okay, and one more. I'm trying to remember the answer to this one because I think I've heard it before. What is Smart City?
That's a great question. I don't know the complexities of the in and out of the smart city, but that's something that the city's going to look into.
Okay, so it's just this.
can get more
the money that was
information.
put in there is for investigating a smart city.
Investigating, yes.
Okay,
yes.
has this
what
been
it would look
discussed?
like for the city.
Yeah. Has this been discussed at a council meeting? Will I find that somewhere?
Yeah, so are we referring to the active transportation grant, something through engineering? Is that what the smart city, or is this slightly different?
It's different.
Okay, then this has not come to council at a full discussion yet that
Okay.
I'm aware of.
Okay.
Thank
all
you,
right.
Carol. I had that same question. I feel like that's a controversial topic, but I don't know the details either.
On that note, though, I will circle back with a team and I'll send an email to the committee members just so you know what that is, because it'll be learning information for all of us. Yeah. Any other questions?
Good.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
With that being said, thank you, Christina. Appreciate it. Now we're just going to shift gears real quickly to future agenda items. So If any committee members wish to have an item placed in the future agenda, it just requires 2 members to do so. Just so you know, as a future forecast, the next time we come together, which will likely be in 2 months or something to that extent, we'll be bringing forward the financial independent auditor for you to review. So we'll go through an RFP process. We'll kind of kick that off, and you'll be reviewing that. And then also we'll review potentially any other additional financial reports. But is there anything else you'd like us to bring forward at that time?
I don't have anything specific right now, but if we take a look at the budget,
Yeah.
if the members here take a look at the budget and we see line items that we would like to have discussed, what is our avenue to getting, how do you want us to do that? Are we sending you an email? Are we requesting that it become an agenda item? How do you want us to do that?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. So if you have specific questions pertaining to a line item, you can send that to myself directly. The only thing I would just caveat is don't send it to the full board just for Brown Act purposes. So we want to make sure that it's not engaging in a back and forth discussion amongst all the committee members. But I can find the answers to those questions. Then what I would then do is also produce it to the entire committee at the full meeting that we have next time. So that'd probably be the most efficient method to do it, where we're in compliance with the Brown Act. Yeah. And that's the same for anyone who has any questions. Yeah. Anything else?
Could we request a presentation on smart cities from the appropriate person?
Yeah. If we have a second from a committee member who would be interested in having that.
I will second that,
Okay,
yes.
great. Smart cities. So we'll have that, and I'll reach out to the appropriate staff, and in the interim, I'll make sure we get some information on that as well. Anything else? All right. With that being said, Chair Hall, would you like to adjourn the meeting? All right, you can hit the gavel, and then we're adjourned. Boom, there it is. Thank you, guys. Thank you, public. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.